If we had Amy's heart, we could save Hannah. Agree to the organ donation, and if needed, push Amy down the stairs or strike her. I'll do it myself. No matter what, give Amy's heart to Hannah. That's what my husband demanded. Let your daughter nearly die so her heart can be offered to my niece. Faced with his appalling request, I felt as though I was losing my sanity. David and I had been married for around 5 years. A year after our wedding, our daughter Amy was born. From the moment I became pregnant, David showed no interest in our unborn baby. When I told him I was expecting, he responded indifferently, "Oh, is that so? Maybe it's just pregnancy hormones." But I remember screaming at him, "Why aren't you even a little happy?" That night, it turned into a huge argument. I never believed David hated children after all. When my sister Sarah gave birth to Hannah, David, who was only my boyfriend, then was so overwhelmed that he held the newborn and wept. "Babies are so tiny," he said, tears in his eyes, gently touching Hannah's soft cheek with a look full of affection. Yet somehow, David seemed to dislike Amy even before she was born. When we learned the baby's gender and I said, "It looks like a girl," all he replied with was a flat, "Oh." When I asked if he'd be present for the birth, he instantly said no. Maybe he didn't hate kids, but was simply afraid of fatherhood. I tried convincing myself to accept his terrible attitude. Then Amy was born, and she was precious. From the very first time I saw her, her tiny fingers grasping mine, too adorable for words. But David remained cold, uninterested. When Sarah came, by with 2-year-old Hannah, David gave all his attention to Hannah, not Amy. I couldn't help but wonder why. Why wouldn't he ever hold Amy? Why did he look irritated whenever she got close to him? When I asked him directly, he snapped, "I'm busy with work. I don't have time for a child." David was ambitious. He wanted promotions fast. He eagerly took on more work, locking himself in his home office to write business proposals. Maybe work meant more to him than family. Still, I always wished he'd care about watching Amy grow. It might have been selfish, but I longed for him to share parenting with me. Amy started kindergarten, spending joyful afternoons on playdates with her friends. Often, I felt like I was raising her alone. The loneliness was heavy, but I found some comfort in connecting with other moms. When I opened up about David to one of them, a blunt but kind woman, she said, "Have you thought about divorce? Raising a child should be a joint effort. Work isn't an excuse. Amy's already 4. I'm surprised you've tolerated it this long. If you're thinking about it, better act before it hurts Amy more." Her words stayed with me. I had been toying with the idea of divorce, but feared the unknown. Could I manage by myself? Would I be robbing Amy of a father, even one who didn't care? So her advice didn't offend me. It felt like a burden had finally lifted. I decided to speak to David. That night, after Amy fell asleep, I was ready to talk. But David approached me first with a horrifying suggestion. He wanted to give Amy's heart to our niece Hannah. David had researched organ donation and concluded that, with parental consent, a child could undergo such surgery. To my shock, it wasn't Sarah, Hannah's mother, but David who told me about Hannah's serious heart condition and how little time she had left. "We need to act now. Amy's heart could save Hannah," he said, visibly desperate. "I need a moment," I said, stunned. "Why am I hearing this from you?" "Because Hannah is my daughter," he confessed. I was too stunned to speak. My stomach twisted in nausea. Even with him standing there, leaning on the dining table, he felt like a stranger. "What do you mean?" I asked, voice trembling. Looking annoyed, David began explaining. He had feelings for Sarah, my sister, for years. He had even proposed to her once, but Sarah chose Kyle, her current husband. Though Sarah had a flirtatious reputation, She had kept herself in check while with Kyle, or so it seemed. In truth, she had been secretly meeting David often. David revealed that Sarah chose Kyle because he was a civil servant, offering stability. David, back then, earned less than average. But if he got promoted, he believed Sarah would leave Kyle and bring Hannah to be with him. Then why did you marry me? I asked. By marrying you, I stayed close to Sarah. It gave me more opportunities to see Hannah. He said plainly. I loved David deeply, but realized he had never really seen me. The pain and humiliation were unbearable. Then came the cruelest blow. Amy isn't mine, he declared. She looks nothing like me. She must be someone else's child. Hannah is more important. Amy's heart should go to her. Something broke inside me. Maybe it was the love I had for him. Maybe the patience that the man before me looked like a monster. I've never been unfaithful to you, I said, my voice cracking. Amy is ours. She might not resemble you, but that's because she's not heartless like you. She's kind. David's angry stare no longer frightened me. As a mother, I knew I had to protect Amy. I decided we had to leave immediately. While David buried himself in his project report, hoping for the promotion that would win Sarah back, I quietly packed the essentials. I gently woke Amy. We're going to Grandpa and Grandma's. I whispered, hugging her close. We're saying goodbye to Dad. You might not see your kindergarten friends for a while. Can you be brave? She nodded silently, sensing the seriousness in my voice. Holding Amy in my arms, I slipped out and headed to the train station. I thought about taking my car, but worried David would demand it back. On the train, Amy drifted off to sleep. We arrived near my parents' house just before the last train ended service. Ignoring the flood of texts and calls from David, I pressed the intercom. My startled parents answered, but I asked to settle Amy in first. After putting her to bed, I explained everything. I told them I wanted to end things with David. They were shocked but understood. No parent could forgive such cruelty. They welcomed us in with open arms. The next morning was restless, but Amy, unaware of the chaos, woke up smiling, delighted to be with her grandparents. Watching them dote on her, I remembered my friend's advice to divorce him as soon as possible. She had been right. I began to suspect David had been plotting against Amy from the start, a terrifying thought. I ignored David, asked constant messages, and sent him one final text. I'm filing for divorce. You were never to see Amy again. Soon after, I got a call from David's parents. What's going on? David says you're divorcing. He said Amy's not his. Is it because of an affair? I realized David was trying to manipulate his parents to gain custody. I decided to tell them everything. They were shocked, and I invited them over to my parents' home. That evening they came. My mom looked after Amy while I sat in the living room with Sarah, Kyle, my dad, and David's parents. Sarah was visibly uneasy. Kyle's face showed restrained rage. I had already told him what David said and what he wanted to do with Amy's heart. So Hannah isn't my daughter? David wanted Amy's heart for her? Kyle's voice rang out. Sarah, trembling, finally broke into sobs. Double quotes, yes, ... But I only wanted to save her, she cried. I'm a mother. Isn't it natural to want to? Save your child. Kyle, maybe you can't understand because you're not her real father. Even after admitting the affair, she played the victim. But Kyle calmly replied, I've always loved Hannah like my own. But sacrificing Amy to save her, that's beyond reason. You and David are despicable. Sarah broke down. My father apologized to Kyle. David's parents, horrified, also apologized. Our foolish son, we're truly sorry. With everything now out in the open, Kyle declared, I'm divorcing Sarah. I'm taking Rose and leaving. Sarah screamed, Wait, who's going to pay for Hannah's treatment? Just then, a car pulled into the driveway. My heart sank. David had come. Of course, he'd guessed we were here. As soon as he walked in and saw everyone's faces, he realized the truth had been exposed. He dared to ask, "Where's Amy?" I stood up and slapped him hard. "I feel for Hannah, but I'll never forgive you for endangering Amy." He looked stunned. I had never been this angry before. Fueled by fury, I rushed toward him. "You're the cheater. Amy is your daughter. You and Sarah are the monsters here. Don't drag others into your mess." My father held me back. David, shaken, exchanged glances with Sarah, who now stood alone. Kyle glared coldly. "I'm divorcing Sarah, and you're not getting Hannah. I won't hand her to monsters like you." Terrified, Sarah and David were kicked out by both families. Kyle, taking leave from work, won custody of Hannah. Sarah, rejected by her parents, suffered a breakdown. Though she had betrayed him, she loved Hannah, but being cut off from her child destroyed her. Kyle once told me she used to complain how hard it was to care for Hannah. I couldn't help but agree. Now, Amy and I live peacefully at my parents' home. She's thriving in her new daycare, making new friends. Kyle and I stay in touch. Hannah is scheduled for her transplant. When we visited her, Hannah smiled and said to Amy, "After surgery, we'll play together so much." Kyle and I, as two single parents, have learned to move forward. We're determined to raise our children with love, care, and responsibility. When I imagine Amy and Hannah running and laughing together, it fills me with hope.